Welcome to the Pitching Command Show, brought to you by Command Trakker, the smart target that MLB and D1 teams rely upon to measure and train command. Many throw hard, but few command. Visit commandtrakker.com. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, joining today's podcast is the great Dan Heefner, head coach at DBU. Welcome, Dan. I'm thrilled to have you on the show.
Man, I am as well. I've been really looking forward to this.
Oh, me too. Hey, I thought a lot about how to introduce you to the audience. In your 20th season coaching Dallas Baptist baseball and 17 years as head coach, I could take a whole show listing your teams and your accomplishments. It's just been amazing what you guys have done. And then I could take another show for the assistants that you've mentored and gone on to great heights. And then I can have another show and talk about all the players and the families whose lives you have made better for knowing you, including my son and our family. So the best I can say is it's an honor and a thrill to have you on the show. It really is.
Well, thank you. I feel the same way. I mean, we've had incredible people come through our program, and your son's one of the best. And it's been a pleasure getting to know your family and your influence on baseball. And that's the great thing about baseball. It's like what happens on the field's unbelievable, but the relationships we get to create and develop through it is what makes it all worthwhile. And Sean's one of my favorites of all time, so he's the best.
Yeah, I found that too in baseball. I met a lot of really nice people. Like I had been involved with engineering for like 30 years, and they're different types. In baseball, you have some really deep friendships and people who are just genuine people. That's the only way I could describe them, is a lot of genuine people. Everyone always talks about max velocity all the time. And on this show, we try to focus on other things needed to succeed as a pitcher, such as control and command, sequencing, movement, mental training, and character. Because often they only talk about trying to throw harder. And we all know that there are lots of other things you need to succeed as well. I thought we'd cover those topics in the show, but first, I'd really like to hear your thoughts on character and culture, because your gift is fostering those. And those are some of the most important qualities I think are needed. What are your general guidelines that you use to set the culture and tone for your assistants and players?
Man, that's a great question and a really broad question. I think it's everything. I mean, the culture of a team, that's something we think about all the time. It's, and to us, culture, we just find is how we do things here. We've just found we're so much better together. I think I'd probably start there. Like, there's a few specific things from a character standpoint, but I think it really starts with, I think as just people, humans in general, like we were created to live life together and not in isolation. And I think it's really interesting. I think that's when we operate best individually as a group, when we're connected to other people. And I just see that in a team. I see individual players. Like we talk about it all the time. Like this year we have 37 players on our team, and we want to have a 37-on-1 mentality. Like a lot of times we think of baseball as it's a one-on-one pitcher versus hitter confrontation. And to us, we're trying to create a culture and environment where it's 37-on-1. Like we are so connected. Our guys like each other, love each other, to where when that pitcher's out on the mound, he feels like I got 36 other guys who I know are with me, behind me, for me. So I think we've got to figure out ways that we can create those type of connections and those type of relationships. And it's not possible to create connection without high character. So I think those two go hand in hand to me. And I've just seen that. It's interesting, like the ABCA National Convention, every year the national championship coach is always the first one to speak. And they're always going to talk on, okay, what was it? What were some things about your team that allowed you to win a national championship? And almost without fail, they're all going to say something about, we were just the team chemistry was unbelievable. We were so connected. We were all pulling on the same side of the rope, all those type of things. And I think I've just witnessed where sometimes it's like teams, coaches, programs, they just kind of leave it to chance. It's like, man, I hope the guys connect this year. And where we want to be really intentional about doing that, because I think we've just seen, I think deep down, everybody wants that. But a lot of times we don't know how to do it. And we just want to be creating opportunities for it.
Well, one example that I often cite on the show is uh, when Sean was in junior college, he would not root for his fellow pitchers. He wouldn't root against them. He rooting for. He was kind of indifferent. And when he got to DBU, you taught him to cheer and support your teammate. So he learned that, and he really did that. He really does do that. And he said, then when he went to the minor leagues, when everyone is trying to get ahead, it's very hard. And if you're only thinking of yourself, you're going to have a miserable time. But
Mhm.
he's known for a guy who really cheers for and tries to help his fellow players, even in the minor leagues. And it makes it better for him as well. So it gets that kind of everyone helping each other. They become more than the sum of the parts, right?
Yeah, for sure. So one thing we've learned with that, well, I'm gonna hit on two things that you just said about Sean, and he is a perfect example of it. When we root for the other guy, so even like in professional baseball, where it really is about you moving up the ladder, and it can be very individual. Like, why would we still want to be a great teammate and root for the other guy when if I'm rooting for him and he does well, he might get the promotion and not me. But
Right.
my selling point on that to be like Sean Boyle would be when I'm rooting for him, two things happen. One is it makes me better. You know, I've heard it called imprinting. Like whatever you think about, watch, talk about, like you're more likely to do it. So every time if I'm rooting him on to do something well, to execute this next pitch, what did I just visualize in my mind? Executing the pitch. And so that just it's almost like positive imprinting on my part. And then when he does something well and I compliment him again, I just imprinted success. I get better every time I encourage or compliment somebody else for what they did well. And then on top of that, the biggest one I've seen is, the thing we've learned is we've been doing this in our program, like, and when we call it humility, when you're about others and not yourself. And the opposite of that would be pride, where all I care about is myself. I've just seen that the people who are about others they enjoy what they're doing. Like they have a ton of joy. They look forward to coming to the ballpark. The guys who make it all about themselves, oftentimes they're kind of miserable. Like they're satisfied when they do well, but the rest of the time they're just kind of moping around. So it just makes it's a just like you said, it's this thing that builds on each other. It's like it's better
Yeah.
for you, it's better for the team, the whole environment gets more positive. Everybody's enjoying what they're doing. They're getting better. And it's just like the snowball that can build on itself. And yeah, Sean is a perfect example of a guy who has done that. And it's really cool to see how he's continued to do that throughout professional baseball, where it's not the norm and people notice it. And to me, it's a huge part of his success as well.
Yeah. And I think another lesson you had taught him too, which is I sent you pictures. He had told me years ago about how you would have them line up for the national anthem. And when they lined up for the national anthem, you had to be at perfect attention, your hands just the right way, your feet angled the right way. And then when I saw him up in AA and AAA, he's still standing at perfect attention. And you saw the pictures of the field of all the other guys just kind of slouching around. And uh, that was a lesson that I think came from what's the saying? Be faithful in the little things, you'll be faithful in the big things. And I think there are a lot of lessons from that, from your faith, that kind of lead towards uh, focusing on things that will make you better and your team better, like that. So I think those details that you focus on with your team instills that with them with other things, being careful about what you do and things like that.
Yeah, that's been a really cool one. I mean, that one's kind of hit home for us, like where our field sits, and you've been there and seen it. It's an unbelievable stadium, unbelievable atmosphere,
It's
but
beautiful.
right behind our field is a veteran cemetery. And so it's like we get to see it all the time. There's funeral processions that go, right in where we have to stop traffic. We hear taps every night at 7 o'clock is played there. We'll hear when there's a military funeral, we'll hear the 21 gun salute. Well, there's times when
I
it's
like how when there was playing taps and everyone stopped playing baseball and give honor to what's going on in behind you.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of hit home to us. It's like the freedoms we have here is they're not free. Like, they were bought at a price. And
Yeah.
it's a really small thing. The national anthem is a way for us to acknowledge those people who have paid for the freedom that we do have. And it's, it's just another, just like you said, another way that we can be about others and recognize other people, and honor the sacrifice that they've made for us, so that we can have freedom of speech and freedom to disagree, and all those type of things. And it's been really neat, the number of veterans that say how meaningful that is, that our guys do honor the national anthem when it's played. But yeah, we're just always looking for ways that we can be about other people. And baseball is a tough game. Like, it is a game that it forces you to focus on yourself. Like, it is a hard game, and it's real easy to just be about, what do I need to do? How do I get better? What just happened? And almost this teeter-totter of, I did great, I feel like I'm on the top of the world. I did horrible, I feel like I'm terrible, I'm going to get cut. But both of those are like a focus on self. And the more I think we can get the focus off ourself, it frees us up to play better and to enjoy what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wrote an article, and I was talking about the need for more character and culture and experience when applying data to baseball. I was saying that in data used in player development, in a data driven approach, it allows coaches to have a tool that acts as a force multiplier. But uh, data is not something you should blindly follow. For example, if you saw Dusty Baker and Bruce Bochy just win a World Series, they had teams that all had the right ingredients, but not the right mixture. And when they applied that experience and character, they brought the team together to be a winning team, which is kind of why I was really looking forward to this show, because you do the same kinds of things. DBU is known as an early adopter of tech. You guys were the first to use my pitch grader software. You're the first to use my command tracker. So you're always at the cutting edge of technology. But I noticed that you're also still piloting your team. You're not letting the tech drive your team. You're still using your experience, and the tech is kind of a tool and a way of measuring things, but you're still using your experience and setting the culture and character to make those things work together. Uh, how do you view tech and culture and character, mixing together like that?
Yeah, that is a great point. I don't think the human element is never going to be completely figured out by technology. And because there's so many nuances, like you're saying, character, personality different. That's a really fun one, I think, is personality differences, backgrounds. Like, to me, like looking at Bochy, it's like unbelievable experience, knows the game inside and out. But what's his greatest strength is probably his emotional intelligence, his ability to relate to each player, give them what each guy needs individually to be able to play to their full potential. And you can only do that through relationship. And I think those, anytime you hear about those great legendary veteran coaches, it's like they're unbelievable at connecting with their players. And so to go back to your question on the technology part, to me, it is never going to be able to be where we can just, hey, here's our lineup, plug and play. Technology says throw this pitch in this situation. Here's the probabilities, all that stuff. Boom, go. Like, let it play out, and that's going to end up in the best result, because humans we're different than that. And so the one way we've seen it, it's like technology has been a huge part of our program. We feel like it speeds up the learning curve. Like, things that take a long time to figure out, we can figure them out quicker with technology. But one way I've heard it said, it's like, are we data driven or are we data informed? And we want the data to inform what we're doing, but not
I
drive.
like that. I like that a lot. I'm gonna use that from now on.
Yeah. I don't remember where I heard that from, but I think that's exactly the case. And because there's times where the data says,
Yeah.
this is an outlier pitch. So we can talk about a whole bunch of different things. Let me just backtrack. Can I say one thing, that the
Yeah.
progression I've seen through the years is we're one of the first college programs to get TrackMan. We got it in 2014. And just the progression I've seen, I think this is a lot of what I've learned a lot from you on too, is early on, it was velocity. Like, if, we sold out to, kind of a different way of training our pitchers and more athletic, explosive, kind of thinking outside the box, taking the white gloves off and just really pushing them. And we developed some elite velocity and really developed a reputation for having power pitchers, and it worked. But then, that lasted a little while, and then a bunch of people start doing it. And now, 90 is no longer, it's not a big deal anymore. Now it's 93, and now it's 95, and it's going to keep bumping up. And then the next thing we saw was, outlier pitches. So now it's not just velocity. Now it's, okay, if you got some ride and some hop, or if you got this breaking ball that can do this, like, you could pretty much just live on that pitch. Like, if I can throw, like, the one, and you remember this, we had Chance Adams comes into our program, and this is back in 2015, and we're looking at TrackMan. It's like, man, his fastball is different. Every time he throws it above the belt, nobody hits it. It's a swing and miss. So second half of that year, we start, hey, do not throw the ball below the belt. And he strikes out 18 per 9 innings the second half of the season. And we've just seen a progression, though, where, what was ride in 2015 is no longer, like, it doesn't play the same today. And if you just keep doing that same thing over and over, hitters have learned how to adapt to it. Like, we saw the Rangers do that in Game 7 against the Astros, like, facing an elite ride pitcher, and they get him out in the first inning because they knew how to prepare for it. If that's 5-6 years ago, that pitch beats them, and they're not making that adjustment.
Well, one of my good friends, Tim Hires?
Yeah.
Yeah, Tim went over to the Rangers, and I was cheering him on because he's an awesome hitting coach. And we would often talk about pitching and hitting to kind of bounce ideas. He's a smart guy.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like hitting, there's this constant, like, cat and mouse game of, and pitchers are always in front. They're the ones who have the ball, and you guys are doing a tremendous job, like, with what you do with Pitch Grader, and how we can, if we adjust this a little bit, if we change the spin here, if we change the axis here, here's what it's going to do. And so what pitchers are able to do with a baseball now, but then on the hitting side, we have to try to keep up with that. So it's like, all right, the ride fastball, swing and miss. All right, let's get machines. Let's, exaggerate this ride. How are we going to beat it? Well, it used to be maybe 17, 18 inches of induced vert was beating people at the top. Well, it doesn't now. It needs to be more than that. And now I think we're seeing where, because hitters can just, single out a pitch, here's how we can beat that pitch, and we can do it in real time. Like, here's who we're facing on Friday night. We can face his pitch. We can simulate his pitches with machine and go. Now I see the transition being, where I think you've done a phenomenal job, like, on the command, but also to have, like, sequencing and variety too, where you can't just live with, I think for a while it was like, you have an outlier pitch, you can live on that. And if you have two, you're really good. So ride it up, 12-6 breaker down, just do this. Where now I think it's, we're seeing where the pitchers have to be able to, this is for sure still the way to go, but you better also be able to throw it down too, and change an eye level, which is going to make your breaking ball better too, compared to if I just stay up, 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 and the second I try to throw the breaker down, it's too different, and guys check off of it. But if I can go fastball up and I can locate my fastball down, even though I have a ride fastball and I know it doesn't play as well metrically down, but I need to show that to the hitter to change his eyes. And then that's going to impact how my breaking ball looks, and he's going to swing at it more. Or the other one we're seeing more now too, I think, is pitchers, they ride it and they throw a sinker. And even though the sinker isn't a great metric pitch, but just the more things we can add on, as a hitting guy, it's like, if you have two things that you can do, we can kind of game plan that. When you start having 3 or 4 that we have to have on our mind, now it's getting really hard. And then
you got to command them. So, like, exactly. in the second book, I was defining pitches by formulas I came up with, because too often the pitches were tagged by someone who didn't know what the pitch was. So you have sliders mixed with changeups, and it skews the data. There's also a case of, like, I always talk, let's say Brandon Coach. I remember everyone talking about how he had a great slider. And I had just started baseball. And I'm looking at the data because I wanted to know what a great slider is. So I'm studying it. And I'm looking. It's like, that's a power curveball. That's not a slider. And
Yeah.
and then I told my friend Emo at the A's that, and he said, yeah, if the press talks about my guy having a good sinker and he's got a runner or some other pitch, I'm not going to correct them. Let them think that he throws a sinker. So the batters are swinging at the ball like it's a slider, and now it doesn't have any horizontal; it's going straight down.
Yeah.
They're going to swing over it. So there's gamesmanship with that as
Yeah.
well. Do you find that?
Oh, for sure. And that same point, it's like, I don't care what the pitcher calls it as long as it works. Like we have a guy right now and he has to think curveball. Like he's thinking he's going like this to the ball. He's actually throwing a sweeper.
Yeah,
This thing's
that's how
going.
you throw it. That's how
Yeah.
you throw it.
Yeah. But it's like, we're telling him.
That's the ball. The ball's back there. I made for some teams. I won't say which team. I made jigs for them to be able to mark the balls so they could practice throwing sweepers with that.
Yeah, but like for him, like they have to think curveball because that's what the hand has to do. If they think,
Yeah,
if we tell them sweeper, then they start trying to like
get under it. Yeah.
their hand starts trying to do what the ball does. Well, no, your hand needs to do something different to get the ball to do this based on then our grip. So sometimes it's even, is it we're trying to trick whoever, or are we trying to trick the pitcher too? Or the pitcher's trying to trick himself with what he's saying, and we'll see that sometimes too, like a cutter, like tell a guy, hey, you're going to throw a cutter now. It's really a slider, but it helps by telling him it's a cutter. He throws it harder. He doesn't try to do as much to it.
Well, I had talked with Colin Poche when he first come up. He was throwing, and I was looking at his data, and he was one that was trying to throw a cutter, but he was throwing a slider. And it's like, well, that's why in my second book, I have a description for pitches based upon how they moved. And I distinctly make a category for a cutter and cut fastball. Because a cutter to me is, I say it's a slider thrown hard.
Yeah.
A cut fastball is a four seam off axis,
Yep.
totally different pitch. The batters have a hard time picking up the cut fastball. They have an easier time picking up the cutter.
Yeah.
So like Sean, when he had that run of going up in what was it 21 with the two no hitters and all that, that's when he learned to throw a true cut fastball. So when he added that in, he had the cut fastball moving up this way, the slider over here. He had the sinker that kind of runs sometimes, and also the changeup. So he hit all different angles. And for as a batter, if a guy's can throw for strikes and command, and the ball can move all different ways, and if he mixes, it's got to be hard. Like, what kind of pitchers would you say you would love to hit against, and what kind of pitchers would you not want to hit against? I mean, as a hitting coach.
Yeah. I mean, the loved ones, like if they have two things they can do, and if they separate early out of the hand, like we can see it pretty quick of, the fastball does this, the breaker, anytime a breaker pops, I think, hitters like that. Cause now that's a pretty easy thing to game plan against. But, when they can tunnel those pitches well, where like you're saying with Sean, where it's like those pitches are coming out the same. And then all of a sudden this one is kind of doing this, and then this one does this, and then this, it's like here, and it could go all these different directions from the same tunnel. That's when it starts getting really difficult. But again, to me the hardest one is when if they've got 3 or 4 things that they can do, and that doesn't necessarily have to be 3 or 4 pitches, but it can also be they've got 2 or 3 pitches that they can throw to multiple locations, and just the more they can spread out, because you and I both know that timing is so different based on location as well. So there's the tunneling part of it, but I think it's just attention to me is the biggest thing I'm starting to see with hitters. The more that they have to think about that, the back of my mind, it could be, I'm looking for this, but it might do this, this, and this. When you start getting 3 or 4 things that it might do, now you're really hard.
That's like the saying, the jack of all trades, master of none. If you try to be ready to hit every pitch, you're not going to be able to do it. I know,
Okay,
like when I talk to,
here's one point, not to interrupt you, but this is one I think is really interesting where when we go back to like why we want to be data informed but not data driven.
Mhm.
So here's the biggest way I see that play out. Like we have all the data now of what a plus pitch is. What is a plus fastball? What's a plus sinker? What's a plus slider? You know, everything. Here's what elite is on every pitch. So, but you can't do that in a vacuum, and pitches don't
right,
operate in a vacuum. They
right.
operate together. So sometimes what I've seen is a pitcher might have a pitch that is quote unquote, it's a bad pitch. But when we throw it into their arsenal with their other good pitches, it becomes a good pitch and the other pitches become better too. And that's that example of, you know, maybe it's a, you know, they have a real ride fastball and they have a sinker that's not good. But if I just show that sinker from time to time, it makes the ride better, it makes the slider better. So that's where I
Mhm.
think that the idea of being data informed but not driven, because I think a lot of like, you know, the data analyst guys are going to say, no, you can't throw that pitch, it's a bad pitch. But within the
Yeah.
arsenal, it becomes a really good pitch.
Yeah. I don't think, like, originally pitch grader was called pitch grader because I wanted to grade pitches.
Mhm.
And then I had just started in baseball, engineering background. So, and I soon found out that I really can't grade pitches. So when they put a plus stuff number on a pitch, I don't agree with that because, like you said, I think the pitch is only as good as what either came before it or what's coming after it. It's like I call them pitching gamuts, where the correct combination. Like for example, uh, to a lefty, if Sean, for example, would throw a two seam into a lefty that goes off the plate. Uh, but if he started with a cutter that went on a black, they'll take that. But now if he comes with a two seam off the black to a lefty, they swing and they can't get it.
Yeah.
So it's a way to getting two strikes. But now if you reverse those, if you threw the two seam first and the cutter second, the cutter's going out of the park. you
Yeah.
know, so the combination matters.
Yep.
So you could say that, well, the cutter had a great value before. Well, it only had a great value because of when you threw it and where you threw it in relation to the previous pitch.
Yeah.
Do you
I couldn't
do
agree
you
more.
yeah, do you talk about those kind of gamuts or things with your pitchers, like for hitters, for example? Yeah, Tim Hires would talk about JD Martinez and how he would pick lanes. And he was so good because he's very disciplined about what lane he's looking for. And if you're not pitch is not in the lane, he's not hitting it. So he had a plan. With your hitters, do you have plans like that, or is it different for each pitcher you're facing?
Yeah, different. I think it's both. It's we want to start with the hitter. Like, what is our hitter's strength? What does he hit well? Because we're going to be able to look at that with every guy, and we want to start there. Now we're going to look at the pitcher, and what does this pitcher do well? Like, we love looking at their heat maps of where do they get hit hard and where do they get their swing and miss or where do they get their soft contact. So it's almost like we want to see a what's the go zone of the pitcher, what's the no go of the pitcher, and a
Mhm.
lot of times this is where, you know, I think pitchers, their stuff's getting better and better, but when they just throw things, you know, they go with that outlier mentality, they're making it a little bit easier on us where, okay, this is where they get hit, this is where they don't get hit. And that allows us to kind of have that lane mentality of, you know, like a ride guy, like we've got a plan against a ride guy. We need to push him down a little bit. And we call it beat it to the belt. Like, not necessarily we don't want to see him down, but we're going to beat him. We've got this kind of a stop zone at the top of the zone and we're going to kind of try to beat it to that spot. You know, a sinker guy, like we need to bump him up, and because we know his go zone and the where he gets hit hard is up a little bit. So now
Mhm.
we're making that lane up that we need to see the ball come through before we go. That's how we like to do it, is just where does this guy get hit hard? How does that combine with my hot zone? And we try to combine those two things together. But that's where pitchers can make it really tough if they're able to do multiple things where we can't kind of pigeonhole them to one lane. Now it's really difficult, and where they can, and and then the biggest one is if they can command it. So now, like, okay, we're looking for this lane, but they can steal a strike over here, and we don't want to swing at that. We can't swing at that. We're going to do no damage if they're able to locate a ball down and away. Like, where's the lowest slug location? It's down and away. And say a guy's a ride fastball guy, but he can locate one down and away and steal a strike on us. Now, and we all know, like, once you get to 2 strikes, everything changes dramatically.
Mhm.
So yeah, we definitely try to go in with each pitcher with a game plan, and it's definitely, we've learned it's looking location, not pitch. There's occasionally where we are going to just eliminate a pitch. Like if a guy's got a breaking ball, we say 2 things. If it's so good we can't hit it, we're going to eliminate it. We're not swinging at it. Or if he can't throw it for a strike, we're going to eliminate it. But
Yeah.
when you're facing those good pitchers who have pretty good command, and it's a good breaking ball, not unhittable, then now we're looking lanes, and we're going to be on time fastball, but any pitch he throws through that lane, we're going to go on. Yeah, again, because usually those zones are going to be up and over the plate a little bit. And from a timing standpoint, that off-speed pitch that's up is going to appear a little bit faster, perceived velocity to the hitter. So they're not going to be out in front on anything elevated in the strike zone.
Mhm. So, which would you rather face as a hitter? Uh, a really high velocity guy, say 95, with kind of control, or a guy at 91 with command? I mean, I'm trying to figure out where the line goes because I think you need velocity, and I know you need command. And it's like, what degree of command do you need to have lower velocity, and what kind of command can you be higher velocity and the command can suffer?
Yeah, I think we got to add one more variable in, and that's the movement of the pitch as well.
Yeah. Mhm.
Because there's sometimes when you have such elite movement, either ride, sink, run, whatever, now that makes that, because we've had some guys before where um maybe the command wasn't great, but the movement was so good, like they had to just think middle and let that thing go, and it's going to be really hard to hit, and they're not going to be able to command it. That's where, like, the control command type thing, like elite movement, we just need them to get in the strike zone and let the
Yeah,
move do the work.
I have a joke series. I wrote a bunch of jokes called the Velomaniac jokes, and they're geared towards like it might be a redneck jokes that
Yeah.
they did, and one of them is if your fastball is straight as a snagged fishing line, you might be a Velomaniac. And the jokes are geared towards that kind of thing, like to kind of poke fun at guys that are only trying to throw hard and straight. It's like you need movement, you need command, you need to mix pitches.
Okay, so going back to that, like all the variables we have now, like if you have elite movement, you can usually, a lot of times you can win in the strike zone with elite movement. Like we've had a pitcher before where he had a good fastball, but not great, like decent movement, velocity was average, but he could dot that thing. And he started for 4 years for us and won a ton of baseball games because he could move the ball around and did whatever he wanted with it. But the thing I'm seeing now is like velocity, like it's got to be so good to win on velocity alone now. Like it's literally at the college game, you better be upper 90s, and even upper 90s. If it's upper 90s, but it's got some sink to it, which kind of, like, those guys can get hit hard still. So yeah, like you better have elite
Yeah,
velocity
I
and
I've been
and
saying,
something different to
yeah,
it.
like I've been saying is that uh, velocity is not like it was years ago, and I said command. I've been telling everyone command is what separates pitchers nowadays. I
Mhm.
said because everyone throws hard, and what I see especially in the minor leagues, the guys who move up, the guys who can throw hard and command and have movement, and have character and all the other things that we'll talk about, and what you need to be a pitcher.
Yeah, it's the way we reframe it to our pitchers is you have to do 2 things now. Like for like that progression we talked about, like it was velocity and then outlier stuff. Well, now the game has changed to you have to be able to execute pitches too. You have to be a pitcher. You can't be a thrower anymore. Like
Yes.
the best ones have both. Another way we've referred to it to our guys is it's stuff squared. Like you got
Yeah.
to have great stuff, but you got to be able to stuff the zone with great stuff. Like you can't just, kind of shotgun approach of great stuff and throw it up there and I'm going to beat people. No, it's got to be great stuff and I can do things with that and pitch. Like the game is just you got to do both now if you're going to be truly elite.
Yeah. I had the Twins, the minor league pitching coordinator on yesterday, and he was talking about command as a multiplier. Like they have a couple they're getting a couple command trackers as well. So they're focused on that too. Uh how have you guys used that command tracker target this year? Has it changed how you work with your pitchers and
Yeah, one, it's a first one, like if something's important, you have to measure it. We've all heard that before.
yeah,
And I think that's been the hard thing about like, and that's maybe one reason why his velocity, been such a go-to. Well, it's so easy to measure. You just throw a
yeah,
rubber gun up and you can get feedback on it. And then now
right,
TrackMan is giving us, the metrics of a pitch. It's easy to measure those things. Command is a much harder thing to measure. Like a lot of times in a bullpen setting, it's just kind of subjective of yes, he hit his spot. No, he didn't hit his spot. Well, did the catcher do a really good job
yeah.
of making it look like a strike?
I
Like,
always told Sean, like, he hated the target, the old one, and I would tell him, listen, training with that, I said, listen, when the catcher moved his mitt by a foot, you think you hit your spot, you missed by this much. And so he trained with that target, but it was a manual version. And that focus, and Bronson Arroyo talked about that on the show too, where he had trained with a tire, and what he said, the tire didn't move, and so he got his elite command, and he pitched 16 years in the big leagues,
yeah.
thrown about 90 or 91.
So another one I heard, and I don't know if this one's true. Sometimes you hear stories, but somebody told me Greg Maddux, like, how did he get his command so good? And one we heard was that as he was coming up through the minor leagues, they took a catcher's mitt and put it on a cinder block in the bullpen. And so then he'd have to throw it to that idea of it doesn't move, like you truly have to hit it. And when you start doing that and pitchers see how hard it truly is to command, I think that's the first thing that Command Tracker does is it gives them awareness of how much they're really missing by like,
Yeah,
and
Micah Posey was talking about that it humbled a lot of the pitchers in the beginning,
oh yeah,
but but I've seen that if when they use it for a while, all of a sudden now they start really getting good, and they have a real good awareness of where the strike zone is now,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And the other thing, like if we want something to improve, we got to measure it, but it also teaches us how to make adjustments as well. If we're not getting real feedback, how do we make an adjustment off of that? So it's like if I throw a pitch and I think it was good but it wasn't, I'm not making an adjustment. So that's the great thing about the command tracker is now we know like, oh, I missed that pitch by this much. Now I can make the adjustment that I need to make. And that's not necessarily like I'm thinking about an adjustment, but it's a feel thing of, that's what I think the best ones do is, they get feedback and then I see that a lot with, so here's one I've noticed, like guys who have elite command, those guys who really have stuff and command, they'll throw a pitch and when they don't throw it where they want to, they'll throw the pitch and a lot of times you'll see them go, like they'll kind of fix it. Like, I pulled that one. Now I wanted to do this, and they'll kind of fix it with they've got a feeling in their hands or their fingers of what the ball should do off their hand. But
Right.
that's what I think the thing like the command tracker does for you is it shows you the miss instead of being deceived that I made the pitch, which sometimes
Yeah.
a catcher can do. Or the worst one is, and this is what I think why we've gotten to this point where command has gone down so much. How are we improving velocity? We're improving velocity with our training with weighted balls that are thrown into a net or a wall that's 10 feet in front of us. So there's zero, like I could have missed the catcher's mitt by a lot of times. I think you missed by 20 feet because you think about when they're throwing a weighted ball into a wall, where do they throw it? They throw it right in front of them like this. Now, if that ball would keep going for 54 feet, like you threw it way down here, when really when you throw a weighted ball into a wall, it should be probably up to your arm side if it's actually going to keep going and get to the catcher. So I think and I look at that, how many throws do guys make during a week, like into a net, into a wall, with zero feedback on where this pitch went to, compared to how many pitches do they throw to a target where they do get feedback. And I think that's what's changed so much these last 10 years is, maybe it went from this many throws are being made with no target awareness, and this many are being made with to a strike zone.
Well,
And we need to
also,
try
I've
to
seen that the targets that were available were very low to the ground, maybe a white dot in the middle, or they're very big.
yeah,
And uh, the command tracker, I had written an article for Baseball Prospectus. I called it, it came out of the RoboZone article that I called it the Universal Strike Zone. And I took Army data. It was thousands of men, and they had where the arms, elbow, hips, everything. And that's how I calculated what was a standard zone for a 6'2" batter. And I'm a big proponent of throwing to a target that is a zone you're going to have in a game. Because if you're practicing throwing to some low target over and over, well,
yeah,
now when you go in the game, you have to now remap yourself to be in the zone. On top of the fact that most of the time, guys would say, "Well, I have TrackMan, so I know if the guy threw a strike or not." Or if I told him to throw to a lower left quadrant, I can see with TrackMan he hit that spot. The problem with that is they never have a visual of the actual zone,
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
And so to me, having the visual of knowing after a while, like I don't know if you found with your pitchers, if I tell the guy later with no target, just a catcher there, tell him throw me a pitch at number 5. I'll bet you he knows where number 5 is now.
yeah,
It's like the target I found creates a common language between the coach and the player, and even a hitter. Like you could tell a hitter, okay, I want you to look for pitches at number 3. Now you have a language, and as a coach, have one of Sean's chapters in the first book was on language, because I would say something to him, he would interpret it in his mind a different way.
yep,
And I'm sure as a coach, you found that you have to find a way. How do you get what your intent is across to your player? And some guys have different ways of understanding what you mean, right?
yeah. Um, like you've gone so many places that are really, really good. Here's one thought on the like cues, and one thing I've learned with that, which has actually been really fun, is there's my cues and then there's the player cue. Which one's more important? The player, like what he thinks and feels. So that's one thing we've tried to do as a coaching staff is, a rule we have in our program is ask, don't tell. So I think a lot of times as a coach, we're really quick to tell them, they just executed a pitch, whatever. Hey, did you feel how you did this on that one? And we tell them the cue or the feel. Well, that may be totally different. So instead of telling them, we should ask them when they do execute one well, hey, what did you feel there? That was perfect. What did you feel? And now
Yeah, I used to do that with Sean. I used to actually say, well, when he threw something really good like that, I'd say, what did you feel? How did that feel? Because I wanted him to map that in his mind, that feeling. That's great.
yeah. And then even on the flip side too, when they don't do one well, instead of me just immediately going to, here's what you did wrong there. Hey, what did you feel there? And so now we're getting them to like have awareness of their body, and it's their cues. It's what works for them. It's kind of a fun way to coach too. It's harder because now you've got to remember things for every single player, but it's way more effective. And now they have ownership over their own body and their development, instead of being so reliant on us to tell them what they did right or what they did wrong.
Yeah, and I'm a big one of my biggest things is know who you are. Also comes into play that people are individuals, so that when you try to train everyone the same way, I don't think you can really do that. I think you could take bits and pieces and assemble them, but everyone I think is a different puzzle. They might have similar pieces, but they're arranged. When I talked about Bochy and Baker having a team with the right ingredients, but not the right mixture. I think when you're developing players, they have maybe the same ingredients, but in different mixtures.
Yeah.
And if and I think if you're not focusing on the individual, I think Wes Johnson had said that when we first met you guys down there. He was talking about the similar process, and he also said what we do here. He says what we do is build a bigger engine. That's how he described Sean. That
Yeah.
we're going to take this kid, put him in the weight room. So I think there's some things that you do for each guy,
Yeah.
but like you just said, you have to also cherry pick what is he really good at, or could be really good at, and focus on that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We love to, maximize strengths. Like, what does each guy do well? Let's maximize that. Let's try to improve his weaknesses, but we want to maximize if and that's what makes a pitching staff unique and different too. Instead of everybody being the same, the hardest thing for a hitting coach is when every guy that goes out there is different. Well, how are we going to make each of
Right.
our pitchers different? Well, they're you're all unique and different. Like, what's the best you? And if we can create this guy's best version of himself and then your best version of yourself, and now they're all going to be really different. And it's really fun too. Let me go back to one thing you said on the pitch tracker, which I think is the command tracker, which is really good, is that idea of like five. You hit the five, you know what a five is, but it also, like, what's one thing we're always trying to get guys to do in the game is like control what you have control over. And as much as possible, it's for some pitchers, it's even eliminate the hit or just execute pitches. Like, one that's always stuck with me in the mental game of baseball, there's a chapter on execution, and it talks about Greg Maddux. And I think it was whoever wrote the book, Dorfman or Revizon.
Dorfman. Yeah,
Dorfman.
Dorfman.
Yeah, Dorfman at season pitch, and then after the game, he asked him afterwards, "Hey, how'd it go?" Because I think he threw really well. He left with the lead, but then he got a no decision because they lost the lead later in the game. And was, "Hey, how did the game go?" And wondering how he would respond to this, and he responded with what his execution was, like whatever it was. Like, say it was 95 pitches, he was like, "I was 70 for 95." Like, and that's how he evaluated his game, not how many hits he gave up, how many runs he gave up, how many pitches did he execute. And that's
Mhm.
what I think the command tracker does, is it gives us a true, did I execute the pitch? Tangible, no, there's no human element in that. It's a yes or no. And then I think it helps the guy go into the game with that mentality too, of almost like
Right.
eliminating the hitter and just execute my pitch. And the more times I execute my pitch, the more successful I'm going to be. Sometimes the hitter's still going to beat it, but then also you get the flip side of there's times you're not executing and the hitter's just, you're getting rewarded because they're not doing a good job. But we want to just control what we can control, and that's what the command tracker is doing to the best level I've ever seen, because it eliminates every other variable.
Oh, thanks. The other thing I liked in it is the scripted bullpens. For
Mm-hmm.
example, if you take a map from a hitter, you can develop a script or even what the pitcher throws, and you can have him throw to that script, and it measures his ability to match that script, like fastball up, slider away, change up there, and he can practice throwing that combination, and it grades him on that. So the biggest thing I like about that too is that when you have bullpens, you have accountability now. Where
Yeah.
before people threw a bullpen, they just throw, 15 pitches. How'd you do? Great. Did you really do great?
Yeah.
Now you have a number. And now the other thing too is I added the multiplayer mode. That was from another team, a pro team wanted it for warm-ups, but I put it in, and I'm seeing facilities. I don't know if you guys do this, where they have multiple pitchers throwing at the same time, like one pitch at a time.
Yeah.
And now the pitchers are competing. It's like a game, and that raises guys love to compete, and you really didn't have that in the bullpen before. You
Yeah.
know,
Oh, there's so many good things about it. Like the competition, the way it's almost gamified command, the sound that goes with it.
you like the the ching the money. The
Oh yeah.
did you hear Did you hear the other one? If you miss, it goes da da da.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, I think it's awesome. And the more we can get our pitchers thinking about executing pitches, because
Mhm.
that is the next wave of pitching. It's like velocity has increased, the movement, we've been able to do that kind of stuff. And now it's going to go back to, it's like the pendulum swing of it used to just
Yeah,
be command only, nothing else mattered. Well, now add velocity plus movement plus command. I love
yeah,
what you said about, it's a command is a multiplier. It just,
yeah,
whatever your stuff is, it's now better if it's commanded well.
yeah. And the other thing, baseball has a lot of slang, and I noticed that like when we talk about command, a lot of people don't know what that when people say executing pitches or locating or quality strikes, uh, those are all words for command. So, like, I'll see videos online of guys saying they're working on their command. Look how good his command is, and I'm looking. It's like that's control. Like if you throw in a strike zone, that's control. Command. I'm talking about hitting a spot in or out of the zone. You know.
Yeah. No, I think 100%. And then what's an acceptable miss as well? And that's the other great thing about the command tracker is how you can change it. It's not just like it's this only. Well, for one pitcher, a guy who has real command, how do we check? Like that's one I think about a lot. If we want to truly develop, you've got to have a way to measure it, but you also have to way to, to make it harder, make it easier. So like we need to challenge, like maybe this is a better way to say it. It's like we want to challenge everybody. You don't want it to be easy. You don't want it to be impossible. Like, how do we get better? We've got to be in this challenge zone. And so with, from a command standpoint, now we can take every guy and we can challenge him. Like one guy, the challenge is just going to be to get it in the strike zone. Like that's good. And
Well,
now he
did you
gets
see?
better. We can shrink it and shrink it. Some guys it needs to be bigger. Some guys the zone is smaller, and we're able to do that now.
Yeah, I that's why I made in the scripted bullpens in there. There are ones called command level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and those were made so that you can give a command test to a 12U pitcher, and he has the entire strikes target. And now you go to a high school guy, he's got two strips on the side of the strike zone,
Yeah,
and then you got a college guy, and then you got a pro guy's one square,
yeah,
and so that guys at different levels you can measure and compare guys command at different levels. Like you wouldn't measure a guy's command in the pro level the same way you would a high school player.
yeah,
A high school player's zone command area is going to be a lot larger, like you said,
yeah.
than a pro guy. you
Hey,
know
I got a question for you because you've looked at everything. The one that I hear a lot from from pitching guys, especially professional pitching coaches, they almost use as an excuse to go the other way, and I'm not buying it. They say the average miss at the big league level is 12 inches or something like
I
that. So,
don't they don't know.
but
They don't.
yeah, to me, it's like, yeah, that might be across the board. And, some guys are missing by a ton, but the best guys, what is the average miss of the best guys?
I would say a couple inches. Like for example, I was talking with Gil Patterson, and he's like, "Well, how would Sean throw to the target? Out of five, how many would he hit a single 5x7 square?" I said probably three. And then I sent him a video of Sean throwing, and like I remember the first video I sent you of Sean throwing to the target,
Yeah,
and he hits the spot. He'll hit that spot because he's always thrown to that target. So if guys have never had to throw to a target, of course they're all over the place. But guys like there's Sean and other guys that are good, and I'm sure. I mean, you guys broke your all-time strikeout record this year, so I'm sure your guys are getting better and better and better to where you could probably measure that now. You go to Command Tracker level 1 and ask them to throw and see how many times out of 10 they hit the spot,
yeah,
and that could be a competition. And I'll guarantee you that after a while you're going to see that improvement. In other words, if you don't practice it, how can you get better at it? So if guys have never practiced that level of command, they can't get better at it. And
yeah.
when they try to measure command in a game, you don't know if the catcher's glove was there as a setup, or you don't know where the target really was.
That's a
On
great,
top of the fact on the top of the fact that until Command Tracker, they didn't really have this awareness of where the zone is in space. I
Yep.
mean, sometimes you could put the strings up, you know, those strings, and they
Yep.
kind of had an awareness of where the zone is. But a lot of times when I saw guys using strings, even in the minor leagues, they make it so small it's like a square. It's like, well, the strike zone is not a square. It's a rectangle,
Yeah.
you know?
No, I think it's genius. And the way it, it gamifies it as well. Like we all know, like that's motivating when you can have levels change too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
here's another cool one. Another guy did was uh when guys are in a multiplayer mode, he let them choose their own zones.
yeah,
This is a really good one. And so they're competing on a score. All right. Now they get to pick, say, four squares, any four squares, and they have to hit their zone. And what he was seeing was guys were picking certain zones. Some guys might pick low arm side, some guys pick glove arm side, glove down. Uh, and it told him as a coach what spots that pitcher had the most confidence in. So now you know that you need to work on those other areas. He's not confident glove side down. He's confident arm side down. So now let's focus and get him to where he's confident in a game throwing glove side down.
yep.
So it kind of brings out other things you can find out, you know?
Yeah. The other thing I love the flip side of that too. It's like now we know where he's really confident. So now you get in a game and it's, whatever that 2-0, 3-1, like where's his money pitch where it's like, I just
Yeah.
have to get in the zone right here. What pitch should I call? Where should he throw to? Or just giving the pitcher the awareness, hey, at any point in time, you need to get back in account. You can go, this is your default money zone.
Yeah. And the other thing was the good miss locations. Because I was always big on that with Sean too about, well, if you're going to miss, I don't want you to have that negative thought in your mind. But with a sinker, for example, we don't want to miss up. If you're going to miss down.
Yep.
And I got that from Pedro Martinez explaining one time that his pitching coach told him that you want to execute your idea. So if you miss, you're going to really execute your idea, and that reduces chances of damage that way.
Yeah.
You know, I had told another friend too that I think there are way more ways to use this target that I ever thought about. Like I always said that good coaches are going to find some amazing ways to use it, and so I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with. Because another thing that came up was catchers. When you're working with the catchers, if you put the target by second base and they do a throw, you're measuring pop time. Well, great, the pop time's there, but the guy has to reach up here to get the ball and come down. That
Yeah.
pop time's not really. He's lost a second.
Yep.
If his throw is right on target, it maximizes his pop time. It's kind of that multiplier idea again, you know. Another guy had put it on a kind of like a cart on first base, and so they're fielding balls, and then he was having the infielders throw to the target on first base, so that they're always right there. So that way, your first baseman is not stretching to catch a ball. They're practicing command on first.
Yeah.
Have you guys used it in other ways yet?
The one, just as we've been talking through things, I want to use it for batting practice. I was just thinking about
Yeah.
that. When you talked about like the pitcher knowing what the strike zone is, like that's one thing. We put balls on home plate and we're having guys, like call out, where did this cross the plate at? And, a lot of times we'll put a player behind and have him try to, check the hitter. But I love this idea of just giving them, sometimes we can use TrackMan on the scoreboard and they can see the strike zone, but I love like having numbers that go with it. And then when kind of just like what you're saying with the pitcher, well, same thing with the hitter. If they can be thinking, okay, what do I hit well? Well, it's, this through this, and I know it because that's what I've been using in BP. So we might have to buy another one from you so we have one for our hitters too.
Yeah, yeah. I had thought of that before too. That if a batter's there, not swinging, and ball is thrown, and now you ask him, where did that ball hit? he's got to call out the number 4 or 5 or H or A, and he's going to have elite strike zone awareness, or actually, he's a elite zone awareness because he's also going to get the shadow zone as well.
Yeah.
And I just think there's going to be a lot of ways that people learn to use this target that I hadn't thought of,
Yeah.
and it's going to be cool to see. You know,
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you about. You have a great reputation of recruiting and developing assistant coaches. Your assistant coaches go on to great things. I mean, that's a measurement of your ability and your culture at the, the team. What do you look for when you're recruiting coaches?
Um, yeah, that is, I have had some unbelievable ones. Like I've been very, very
Well, it's not an accident because all of the ones that you have been awesome.
Yeah, I think the number one thing, obviously the number one thing is character. Like they have to have like high integrity,
Mhm.
truly care about people. Like that's the baseline foundation. The next
Mhm.
one to me is, it's the buzzword today, a growth mindset. I would almost define it more as they have to be curious. Like they have to like it's exciting. Like to me, this is why I've enjoyed getting to know you so much. Like you're always curious, you're always learning, you're always, what's a better way we can do this? Like how many versions of pitch grader have there been? There's been thousands of them because it's always like it wasn't just do something, this is good, this is how I do it. It's like, no, I did this, now I think we can do this to make it better. And
Yeah.
that's the number one thing I look for in assistant coaches. I want a guy who's curious, who's excited by learning, who's excited by finding a better way. Because if we have that, and now we have humility with that, where it's like, I don't care if it was my idea, your idea, whose idea it was. Let's just work together to figure out a better way. It's an unbelievable atmosphere in an office when we're all having that mindset and working together and figuring out like each player, what's the best thing for each player. And so that's probably the number one thing for me is they got to have character and then they have to have a curiosity and a true desire to an excitement to improve and get better.
Yeah. Well, it's a winning formula. uh, Now, for players, what kind of players are you looking to have at DBU? Like, if some high school kid was watching this and he wanted to know, well, what kind of person do I have to be? I'll put it that way, to to wind up at DBU.
Well, obviously, we play the Division 1 level. We need to have a tools and a baseline level of talent. But we've found like it's not just the best tools win. And the other one we look for is like not who's the best player now, who's going to be the best player. And so a huge part in that is similar to the coaching side is, but on the player side, we refer to it more as just drive, like drive and passion. Like if they have a high drive and they love baseball, then they're going to enjoy being here all the time. They're going to work hard. They're going to want, it's kind of that same idea. Those players who it's just like, hey, what do you have for me today? Or I was thinking of it like the players we love are the ones where it's like you ask them a question, hey, what have you been working on? And they can just go on, this long list of, well, I was
Right.
doing this and I saw this guy do this and it made me think of this. So I was working on that last night. Like if you have that type of drive and passion and motivation, like we love those guys thrive in our program. um yeah, if you just play baseball because you're good at it and yeah, I'll do whatever you ask me to do, and that's not a guy that we have a lot of success with. At the same time, it's like and nobody's perfect, so there's no perfect players in our program, there's no perfect coaches in our program, but we do want people who are going to be open to being humble, being about other people. And that's one where we don't kill a guy if he's, because sometimes it's they've just never been, that's never been taught to them, it's never been expected of them. But we're just going to be open when we recruit them. It's like, hey, this is a place where you're going to know each other and be known. So just know, like, and part of that is like we've got to be able to open up and talk and be vulnerable with each other and care about each other. And this is not just going to be about you and you only, and you do your thing and put your blinders on and get your work done. Like we're going to take the blinders off and we will leave no stone unturned to help you reach your full potential as a player. But at the same time, we want you to be the best teammate that you could possibly be. So it's all about your personal development and then you being a phenomenal teammate. And if you're sold out to those two things, like to me, that's the formula for success, is a true passion for development and a true passion for being a great teammate and to be about others. You combine those together and it is so fun. Like you're going to look forward to coming to the ballpark every day if you have both of those things.
Yeah. I remember telling Sean, and you'll probably remember this. I said, you are so blessed and lucky to be at DBU. I said, just when no one's around, just go up in the stands and sit there and just take it all in, that the luck you've had to be there. And he said he's sitting there up in the stands, and maybe it was you or another coach came out, hey, Boyle, what are you doing up there? And he's like, just taking it in. Like, just be grateful that where you are. I think that's also important. Like when you talk about being humble, but being grateful that you're given an opportunity, and that I would always tell Sean too that there are a lot of other kids that would love to be where you are, and remember that, and so like if you have a hard day, because life is hard sometimes, remember that you have an opportunity. Take advantage of it. It's the most, you're given God-given gifts, you got to use them, right?
Man, that is a great point. And that's one, I have to work on that. We talk to our players all the time. When you're so focused on development and always trying to find a better way and get better and move up, it is real easy to start getting, you're hard on yourself. And we found that a lot of our guys who are so driven, and coaches that are driven, they're hard on themselves too. So it's like, we do have to intentionally be grateful and hunt the wins too. Like what, after every single game, every single outing, like the first question we always ask ourselves and each other is, what went well? Like what was good about today? What went well? And I think you're taking it a whole step further of not just what went good in a practice in a game, but what's kind of going good in life right now. Like what do we have to
Yeah.
enjoy, be grateful for, instead of always thinking about the next thing. And that's one I've noticed with, and it's for all of us. It's like always looking forward to the next thing. I can't wait for winter break. I can't wait till I get moved up to AA. I can't wait for this. I can't wait till I get to pro ball. And then a lot of times, like we'll see this with like players, it's like, can't wait for winter break. And well, what happens when they're home at winter break? I can't wait to get back to school. It's like, well, let's be where our feet are. Or the other one,
Yeah.
I can't wait to get to pro ball. And then they get to pro ball. They're like, man, college was awesome. Like, I wish I could do college again. It's like,
Yeah.
let's just.
Well, I'll give it a great example. Sometimes my wife, Carol, she'll see a video of something of the kids when they were younger, and she may cry a little bit that when they were young, they're older now. And I always like that song, Remember When. Remember that song?
Yeah.
And so I said, make this moment when. So she actually made me a sign that's in our kitchen that says, because I always say it, this is when. Like, make this moment a moment that you will think about later as, you remember when? Do you remember when you and Dan Heefner were on the show talking? Like, to be in the moment, like you said, where your feet are, grateful for what you've been given. Like, Chris Wimmer came to see us throwing a game. Sean was throwing. I didn't know anything about him. We went out to dinner right after. He's a nice guy. He mentioned DBU. We had no idea about DBU. Sean wanted to go to like St. John's or somewhere else.
Yeah.
Then we looked at it. It's a great school. And that chain of events, when Wes Johnson flew here to see Sean throw a bullpen, just for an afternoon, flew back, then invited us up there. And when we went up there, I thought, this is the place. So Wes gave an offer to Sean, and he said, you get back to us whenever. And I said, well, Wes, we're pretty straightforward people. I said, would you let me and Sean go outside, talk for a minute, and we'll come back in. We went outside, and outside your office, and I said, Sean, I think this is the place. What do you think? He said, yeah. I said, well, go back there and shake that man's hand. We went back in. There's a picture of Sean shaking Wes Johnson's hand. I think a week or two later, he goes to Mississippi State. I think if Wimmer had not introduced us, if we had not accepted the offer that night, a whole chain of events might not have happened.
Yep.
And so being where your feet are and not hem and hawing and thinking about the just all right.
I'm so glad he said yes on the spot.
Like you have affected a lot of lives by what you did and what Wes did, and if you think about that, it also can humble you too, because being grateful for what you have, but also aware that you can have an effect on others is probably, I think, a good hallmark of what players and people at DBU are about.
Yeah, that's what we've wanted to create. We all impact each other, and it goes both ways. Like, it's unbelievable the impact players have had on us as coaches too, and Sean has had a huge impact on a lot of us.
Yeah, and I know he always had a great time with your sons, and I still have signs that your sons were holding up when you were in the regionals.
Yep. Yeah, that's when a player is, when he's a true mark of a person, I think, is what do kids think of him? And all my boys, like the ones that were younger, they loved Sean. Like, and that just kind of tells you like how focused he was on other people. And, and that was my kids, but that was even the kids he didn't know their names, like the kids that would come to the game and afterwards, like you're going to see him over talking to them after a game, just making somebody's day and making an impact.
Well, I always told him too, and he does it to this day, is that the reason that you're playing is these fans. So he'll be out there signing long after. I said, there's a little kid, you saying hi to him, even just saying hi can mean the world to him. It's a simple gesture. And so he's aware of that. I have a list of things at the end of the show. If you please read them.
Yeah.
And just tell me, what are your top 4? I'm going to read them, and so people who are listening can know what they are.
Okay.
The top qualities I think a pitcher needs are character, command, changing speeds, movement, max velocity, sequencing, reading batters, mental toughness, and know who you are. And if you would please pick the top 4 that you think. I know that you need all of them,
Wow. See. I wish I could combine a couple together, like the character and mental toughness. I wish I could combine those two. So I'll go character 1, because I think that's going to impact every other one. Because that's going to be who they are off the field, which is going to impact how they, the way they work out, the way they train, the way they live.
Yeah, that's a multiplier, like command is a multiplier, right?
Yep. So I'll go character 1. Character 1, command, velocity, sequencing. And obviously, like we've talked about, there's differences in there. It's like, well, if the velocity's not there, but they have elite movement, we're good.
Yeah. If you Dan DeQuette had said on the show that list was like a mixture. Like you can take different parts and create a power pitcher. You can create a finesse pitcher, like all those qualities. And then if you had all of them, you have an elite pitcher. But you can, like you said, create different pitchers out of them,
Yeah.
I know you got to run. Thanks so much for coming on the show. This has been one of my favorite shows.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate you've had a big impact on our program. So Pitch Grader, the Command Tracker, you do phenomenal work. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And thanks. Like I said, you've had a great impact on our family's lives, and I appreciate that very much.
All right. Thank you.
All right. See you later.
See ya.
Don't forget to hit subscribe to get notified when new episodes are released. Pitching Command Show, brought to you by Command Trakker, the smart target that MLB and D1 teams rely upon to measure and train command. Many throw hard, but few command. Visit commandtrakker.com.